Welcome, everybody. Today we want to talk about an interesting aspect of design that focuses on digital fabrication and prefabrication. So Georgia Tech, we're particularly interested in these issues and particularly interested in entrepreneurship and innovation. So last spring I happened across a very interesting company out in Colorado called Wayfarer Vans, and today we're going to hear from Ian Horgan, who's chief van operator with that company, and how he came to develop some very interesting approach to the boom in vans that has been accelerated by the pandemic. Ian, might introduce yourself.
Yeah, so my name is Ian Horgan. I'm the founder of Wayfarer Vans. I started Wayfarer Vans back in 2015, really out of my single car garage, out of just a frustration with what was currently in the market in terms of availability for camper vans. I realized that there really wasn't an option for me out there. I didn't have the means to pay for a $60,000 to $90,000 conversion, plus the van, so you're well into six figures for the whole thing. I wasn't afraid of building myself, so the DIY option was definitely the easiest option for me. And then, of course, I wasn't going to buy a used one. That was the foundation of Wayfarer Vans, and ever since then, we've been growing exponentially. It went from a single car garage to here we are. 5 years later, we have 2 locations. We just opened up a Reno location. We got 8,500 square feet of production and installation bays here in Colorado, and then 6,500 square feet in Reno, 2 CNC machines here in Colorado, and we're going to be dropping another CNC machine for Reno. So I took the steps in developing this company when building the first van for myself, that it all had to be scalable. So that was really kind of the root of Wayfarer Vans.
Can you give us any insights you might have for young people who are thinking about starting a company like you did?
Try to find multiple facets of what you're interested in. I'm interested in design. I'm interested in outdoors. I'm interested in business. And so kind of combining all those different passions helps spread the burnout across a couple different facets. Because, if I get tired of answering emails, or like the business side of setting up our HR and setting up, our new kind of companies as we develop further into different locations, if I get burnt out on that, then I can just jump over and design stuff, and that kind of takes away, and I can kind of get my head wrapped around that, and allows me to step away. So I'd say try to find multiple different interests and passions that you can combine together into a business. I would say also don't get trapped in being the technician. So people always think, I'm going to start a business because, let's say, I like making cupcakes. So I'm going to start a business making cupcakes. Well, if you don't think past that technician phase where you're the one making cupcakes, then you're going to burn yourself out, and you're going to get sick and tired of making cupcakes. So you got to think. I think there's a book out there, but it transitions from technician to manager to entrepreneur. So you start off as the technician. I had to start off as the technician and building these things. But with that end goal is all right, being an entrepreneur and running a company, that's, where we want to head, or that's where I wanted to head. So I had to quickly phase myself out of the technician phase of it, and then into the manager phase, because, once you phase yourself out of the technician, then you got people underneath you, and you got to manage them, and then getting them all on board and thinking about the vision of the company, and then taking yourself out of the manager phase and looking at the entrepreneurial phase, which is, I think, the transition that we're in right now.
at the College of Design, we have some what we think is cutting edge CNC equipment in our digital fabrication lab: routers, planers, joiners, water jet cutters, some fairly good sized 3D printing capabilities. So tell us how you became aware of CNC equipment. That's not something that a lot of people are well versed in.
Well, I have a background in engineering and business, and so I was aware of the equipment, and I knew that it could be the make or break tool for us for scalability. So what happened was I had to source out a different vendor to do all the cutting for me, because it's an expensive piece of equipment, and just starting out, it's like I didn't have the capital to buy that or the income coming in to support the monthly payment on it. So I was like, but that's the only direction I saw us heading. We needed a CNC machine. So I found a cabinet maker up in Woodland Park, and it took some convincing with him. He's like, you want to do what? And make camper vans? And so I got him convinced. I'm like, look, it's going to be good for you, because I can just call you up and I say, like, hey, I need X amount of these parts, and you have them all programmed in there. So for you, you can just charge me for the time on the CNC machine, and there is no custom fabrication that you have to do like he would, building a brand new custom kitchen for somebody. I'm like, so it's pretty much all butter for you, and no time involved other than just the CNC operation. Fast forward from that relationship about 8 or 9 months, and his business grew, and he's like, hey, look, I'm looking to buy more equipment, and we're going to get a new CNC machine. Do you want the one that we've been using? And I thought, well, hell yeah, because it's got all of my programs in it. So of course I want it. And at that time we were starting to make some money, and I could support, a payment on a used machine. We got it down into the shop and started cutting on it. It was great because it's not as simple as this, but we just dropped it and plugged it in and then started pushing buttons and we're cranking and making our parts. They're pretty simple. They're a flatbed 4x8 table, and it's got a vacuum table on it, so it actually holds the material down as you cut the parts. And so it's not like a 5-axis machine, because we're really only cutting in 2 dimensions.
This is all abstract. How about a walking tour?
So here's a van that we're doing today. So here's our kind of prefabricated floor. As you see, as it overlays on top of the OEM floor of the van. We're doing our insulation. This is the substrate for our paneling, the framework. Our wool insulation. We have it for the ceiling here too. Here's also some bed brackets. This is kind of the only thing that we don't make in-house. We make about 95% of everything in-house. To be more vertically integrated also allows us to control our costs more. So, but this is one thing. It's a 1/4-inch steel that's bent and laser cut. So that's one thing that we have to source out.
I said, and you in-house cut all those wood frame pieces you were showing there, the substrate.
Yeah, we cut all those in-house too. All the parts come off the CNC machines, and they come onto these shelves here. And so each builder can go and pick up, just essentially a packet. This is a wheel well box. So they pick up this packet, all the parts that they need. They typically bring them over to these like workstation tables. Today we're doing flooring. So we have all of our substrates curing with glue right now, and then we hit them with a commercial grade vinyl. And then this goes off onto the CNC machine, and it cuts our floors out.
Yeah, we have a fairly robust shop operation in the College of Design. We have both a kind of traditional shop, and then we have the digital fabrication lab that has mostly CNC, industrial scale equipment, 5-axis routers and the like.
Cool.
And so, when did you move from having outsourcing your CNC work to having your first machine in house?
I'd say about a year and a half or so after I started the business. Moved out of the single car garage, which of course just the CNC machine itself would take up a whole single car garage. And then, about 8 months after I moved into my 1,500 square foot building, I was able to buy the one from my cabinet maker. And he was great. That's the other thing too, is like just find good partners, and partners also being vendors when you're starting a business, because man, it's really difficult if your partners don't really believe in what you're doing. That was a difficult part for me, is having this concept and trying to convince people of the concept was difficult. But now that we do so much volume, that the vendors that took that chance with us are really happy now, because we're buying a lot from them.
Two of the schools in the College of Design are industrial design, which is product design, kind of up to they actually do a fair amount of furniture design, and then architecture, which basically looks at laying out space from large hotels, commercial products, down to houses. It struck me that what you're doing is kind of at the intersection between those. You're making mobile, tiny houses out of prefabricated furniture in a way. So can you talk about how the design aspect of this has really driven your business?
I really like design. For me, I like drawing, and I like thinking of the different aesthetics and materials, and kind of the tactile feeling too of how does the product feel? How does it feel in the space? Does it feel quality to? How are you interacting with that space and that material? And then also thinking about that design is also an extension of your brand. Because you think of like IKEA, right? Like IKEA makes so many different products, but you can kind of point that out and be like, oh, well, just the look of it and the design of it and the materials that they use, you can point it out. That's like, yeah, that's IKEA. So design is also, how is the functionality of the space? I go out and I, of course, own my own van and camp every single weekend. So being immersed in that space and using it every single weekend creates a lot of inspiration that you then take back to the shop and think about how you're going to kind of take that inspiration and turn it into like a tangible product. Does that product that you're designing also match the brand that you're trying to build with your business? So I want every single van to leave the shop exactly the same, and we'll put in some design elements in there so that it stands out from the crowd. And we've had incidences where people are just out and about, and as soon as that Wayfarian opens up their sliding door and people are just walking by and they peek inside, they know, oh, that's a Wayfarer van, because every single van is exactly the same, and we've intentionally made our design look a little bit different than all of our other, like our competitors, like our custom builders. There's kind of several different facets to design as well when you're thinking about, am I building it just for myself or am I building it for the company? And how does that, if you're building it for a company, how does that piece mesh with the overall story of that brand and that company?
So Ian, thank you so much. I think you have a great story of both innovation, entrepreneurship, design, and fabrication, kind of from soup to nuts. And I think you've done an amazing job in 5 years, and wish you all the success in the world. And thanks for sharing your story with us today.
Well, thank you, Steve. I'm flattered that I could be any sort of inspiration to young entrepreneurs out there. And yeah, I mean, if any one of your students or anybody who's watching this wants to reach out and just ask questions or wants further inspiration and think about, they're thinking about starting their own business, they can email me, and I'm sure you'll share my email with whoever's interested. But yeah, absolute pleasure talking with you today.